Okay, on our next installment of Push-Ups for PTSD, our series about physical therapy and education on post-traumatic stress, we're going to talk about situational awareness. I was laughing because I just watched this, one of my favorite ads that pops up on my Facebook feed. It's one of my favorites because I hate it so much. And it's for a self-defense program online. And you know, the instructor and all of the students are all like so intense with their testimonials and talking about how intense their self-defense program is, and it's so scary. And I feel like I'm watching some kind of like crime documentary television show where they're talking about something traumatic happened. And I'm looking at what they're saying and I'm like, okay, like, you know, like, and then what happened to you, you know? And it's like, and they're talking about the course, right? So why is education, why do you want education to be such a serious and solemn subject? Of course, if we are reporting on and talking about a traumatic incident, like that's a serious, solemn subject. But when we talk about education, and what is the education about? Well, I guess it makes sense that they portray, you know, and present in that fashion because they're teaching self-defense as opposed to self-empower. Okay, and what self-defense means that I'm seeing the world as a harmful place and I have to defend myself from it. All right, I had dinner with like a really large, powerful guy, a couple of them, and one of them was trying to understand a little bit better about like what exactly it is that I do at my dojo, you know. And he says, so you teach self-defense, and my brother says, well, sort of like self-defense, but it's not really self-defense, you know. And so, like, what is it? What is it that we're doing here? I would say that, you know, self-defense says, well, like, what do you do if someone puts their hands in their neck, right? And then, you know, the guy I was talking to says, yeah, like that seems like self-defense. I was okay. So for this guy, you know, maybe he's like, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", like big guy, you know, big shoulders, everything, powerful dude, military veteran, whole package, you know. And I says to him, okay, so let me ask you, you know, I'm like, you know, like, what would you do if someone came up to you and put their hands on your neck? How would you escape, you know? I mean, and the guy's neck is like this thick, you know? And he looks at me like me? Like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, you. And he's just like, gives me this kind of incredulous look like, I'm like, yeah, exactly, right? And it's like, well, why does he respond that way when I present this problem to him? It's because he's an empowered person, all right? Now, you don't have to be a large, physically, you know, like imposing person to be empowered. Okay, technique and understanding how to move and how to avoid situations and how to express yourself in an empowered way will give you that same degree of confidence and actual ability. Okay, it's just that for somebody that's large and powerful physically, you know, it's a little bit easier for them to relate to this idea, but they just, you know, you present a separate problem to someone who is fully empowered, a self-defense problem, and they look back at you like, what are you talking about? I mean, like they can understand why someone else, you know, like a more diminutive person or a less confident person would need to learn these techniques, right? But for them, they're like, I don't need those techniques. And I said, why don't you need the technique? They say, I don't need those techniques because I am a powerful person. Okay. So then for the people who are less empowered, right? How about instead of teaching them techniques for escaping chokeholds, why don't we just empower them? And then they transcend the whole question. Okay. In keeping with that mindset, we were talking about situational awareness, all right? Situational awareness is a subject that comes up a lot of times in self-defense. I remember in the military, we would talk about operational security, and at some point in the PowerPoint presentation, a random picture would pop up, you know, it'd be like a little, you know, like a city scene at like a you know, a store and a road and a car and a person, you know, some people that are doing their daily business and a dog or whatever, you know? Just an everyday classic USA scene. And then the slide would be on shown for 5 seconds or whatever, and then they'd take it off and they'd say, okay, let's check your situational awareness. And, you know, who was paying attention? Like, what was the license plate on the car? And they'll say like, okay, what color hat was the person wearing in the store or something, you know? And it's like, that's not, like there's nothing in that picture, in the way it was portrayed, to make the license plate of that car or the color of the hat or how many pigeons were on the roof seem like, you know, an important concept, right? Now, if you go around your life counting pigeons on every single freaking building, all right, and memorizing every single license plate, then you're gonna be really stressed out. And that's not situational awareness, that is hypervigilance. And hypervigilance is a effect or a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, and this is a huge problem in the world of martial arts and self-defense, that a lot of times the people that are teaching are people who have post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're basically like infecting all their students. I mean, like it's really kind of like sick, right? And actually, we shouldn't be teaching self-defense. If someone's teaching self-defense, I'd stay away from them. Really. Okay, what you want it. I mean, it's a colloquial term. I understand that. Okay, it's just an everyday term people use. But really, if they're truly teaching self-defense, then they're just stressing people out. All right, and I'm not saying the techniques are all like useless or whatever, but like I said, one of my favorite sayings is that in order to truly solve a problem, you have to transcend the level of thinking that created the problem. All right, so if you feel like you don't have power in the world, you're not going to solve that by learning fighting moves, only fighting moves. All right, you need to train your mind to think of yourself in the world in a better way. And the incredible thing that I'll finally leave you with is that what I do in my method is that, yes, we do techniques and whatnot, but I've been in martial arts for close to 30 years now, and what I witnessed in that, knowing many people throughout these many, many years, all throughout the world, is that for the most part, every year, I see these people and I check in with them, and they're basically at the same skill level. All right? And that is because they're doing physical movements and rehearsing movements, but their mind is still the same and their identity is still the same. And what I do in my method is that just as short as 1 month, and it's for sure 3 months, 6 months, in a year, that I have people who have maybe their whole life, they'll say, I was unathletic. I have 2 left feet. I'm uncoordinated, and I look at the way that they move in their first day. Yeah, and I say, yeah, that's true. But it's okay. It's no judgment because I know that everybody can learn and everybody improves. And what I see from these people who are maybe their whole life totally unathletic is that by communicating to them in a different way and helping them sense themselves and their feelings and to move and to think and see the world, and especially communicate with themselves in a more empowered way, that suddenly these people become athletic and agile. Okay? So that coordination and the agility and the physical aspects come not only faster and easier, is that really, honestly, they hardly, people who start unathletic and do martial arts for many, many years, in my opinion, never really get it. I mean, my experience, they never really get those physical skills, to a full extent, right? But when we do a mental, emotional, and physical practice, then truly the whole person transcends, their previous identity of being low physical power and low mental emotional power. So we work on the whole person, and then after just a short time of teaching people to think and move and act in an empowered way, we might check back in and say, okay, well, what would you do if someone put their hands on their neck? And then these people look at me with that same kind of ridiculous look that large, powerful guy I was talking to today gave me. And that's what I want, even for small people like me. I want them to look at me like I'm an idiot when I ask them a very contextual, hypothetical self-defense question. What if I grab onto your wrist like this, And then they just look at me like, I would just slap you in the face, right? But not in a malicious way, and that's the best part of it. All right, so for the physical aspect of today's exercise here, we're just gonna take one aspect of our yoga push-ups here. And what we're gonna do is, a lot of people, this is either could be like a cobra or an upward dog position. It doesn't really matter what you call it. What matters is that we get this action in our spine. So you can do this with your knees on the floor or off of the floor. And what we're gonna do is we're trying to get our shoulders to squeeze in the back here, right? Now, one thing that I see really most common is that people put their hands forward this way. And it's okay, it's not wrong to put your hands forward, all right? But with hands forward, it requires a lot more flexibility in your throughout your arms in order to be able to get the right position in your shoulders. All right. So what I encourage people to do is to focus the pressure onto the heel of your palm, which is that bone right there, all right? So I'm gonna focus the pressure on the heel of the palm, and it's cool because then you'll learn how to pivot your hand, which is maybe something you never really thought about before, but now you can pivot when you're in contact with the ground. Also, striking with this part of your palm, it requires no skill whatsoever, and it's incredibly powerful, all right? And there's no wrong way to strike with that part of your palm, all right? Like if you hit somebody with that bone in any way, shape, or form, then you can call it any karate chop, reverse karate chop, palm, heel thrust. I don't really care what you call it. It just hurts, all right? Just whack somebody with that bone if you need to. So, and anyways, we don't talk about whacking people. We talk about creating space. And all I'm doing right now is pressing with that bone into the ground to create space between me and the floor. And if you understand how to create space between yourself and the floor, then for sure you will know how to create space between yourself and someone else's face that you would like to keep away from you. Okay, so the difference in framing. So now, what we're gonna do is that I'm pressing here into the ground to the heel of the palm, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna squeeze our shoulders back, right? And we're not gonna let this happen. So we're gonna go shoulders away from our ears and squeezed back. And what we see very, very, very often is this position right here, all right? And what this shows is generally like an indication of a little bit of a lack of communication with your back strength, all right, and your shoulders, all right, and maybe lack of strength too. So what we want to do is we want to strengthen our shoulder muscles. When I say shoulder, though, I don't mean this here. I mean really upper back. So around your shoulder blades, okay? So you're going to be squeezing back with your shoulder blades, kind of squeezing your shoulder blades together, and I'm pressing into the heels of my palm, and I can wiggle around. You can go knees on the floor, which is helpful, all right? And in this position, every single time I teach a position, I like to remind myself and everybody else that what you want to do is you want your thighs turned in a little bit, all right? So you see my pinky toes are touching the floor, all right? If you don't do that and your feet are this way, you're going to be much more prone to hyperextend and cause pain in your lower back. And I don't want you to do that. So rotate your thighs inward, press to your palm heels, right? And now we're going to squeeze our shoulders back and move our shoulders away from your ears. And what happens when you do that is you get this kind of like rotating movement. It feels like your arm is kind of screwing down toward the floor, all right? And then we're gonna straighten our arms, okay? Really, really, really incredibly beneficial exercise. And also I want to be using my whole spine, and your neck is part of your spine. So we're gonna look up, and I'm gonna squeeze shoulders back, shoulders away from my ears, arms straight as possible, and then we'll go down, all right? And then I'm gonna wait, exhale, and then when I feel an inhale coming on, I'm gonna go press up, and what I do is I focus on inhaling when I put in the most effort, okay? So when I'm gonna put in the effort is when I'm gonna inhale. And then we can go down. All right, when I go down, it's okay to rest your shoulders for a second, but what I want you to do is, if your shoulders shrug forward this way and now I press up, it's really hard for me to get my shoulders into the correct position after I'm up. The first thing that you use is your breathing. Inhale, then use your back strength, then use your shoulder strength to pull back, and then simply extend your arms. And when you work in that order, that is how I spoke earlier about how do we help smaller people become as empowered and ultimately powerful as larger people, potentially, right? Or larger people are always gonna be more physically powerful, right? But if they don't train and have this type of like insight and not control their emotions and stuff, then smaller people can be comparatively more powerful. So you do that by using your core strength. If you use your shoulders and your legs and your hips and your back strength to oppose someone else's bicep strength, they're gonna have to be a pretty big person to be able to overcome your core strength using their bicep strength, right? Like how much can a person bicep curl versus how much can you lift up on your shoulders, or how much can you deadlift? You know what I mean, right? So you're using stronger muscles versus your stronger muscles versus their weaker muscles. And so what we do is we inhale up using our, first of all, breathing, back strength, shoulder strength, and then least of all, extend arms, whereas what most people will do is they'll just arms See, shoulders forwards means my shoulders are totally not doing much for me at all. And then it becomes this arm exercise, you know, like arms and kind of like chest thing, or even pushing up this way. It's all arms, right? Which is fine, but it's not great. Inhale, back and shoulders, and then extend your arms at the last moment of effort. Inhale, back, shoulders, extend. Inhale, back, shoulders, extend. Inhale, back, shoulders, extend. Okay? That right there, I'm just putting out there, is one of my most profound kind of like secrets. But I can put it out there. What I've learned is that none of my competitors are even gonna none of my competitors are gonna tune in and be smart enough to steal what I'm doing, because what's behind it all is that you have to have an upright perspective on life in order to even get it, right? And what people do is they express themselves through their martial arts and through their movement and through their teaching. And that's what I'm doing. And so the reason that my stuff looks different than a lot of other things, especially self-defense and fighting, is that I'm not self-defensing or fighting. Okay? I'm not self-defensing or fighting. I am empowering people and empowering myself, and I am simply negotiating gracefully through whatever challenges come to me each day. I'm not fighting anything. Last thing I want to do is fight. Okay? And if you identify with that mentality, then make a comment.